Patrolling the neighborhood with an iron fist, the HOA's wellness squad thought they'd get away with it. But one resident wasn't staying silent, and she was about to take them down in a shocking showdown that would expose their dark secrets. Samantha stared out the window, her eyes narrowed with determination. For months, the HOA's wellness patrol had been terrorizing her neighborhood, harassing residents and invading their privacy under the guise of community safety. But she knew the truth. This was nothing more than a power-hungry faction flexing their control. She gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, her knuckles turning white. Enough was enough. This had to stop. With a deep breath, she turned to her husband, Richard. "I'm going to the next HOA meeting. I'm going to expose them, once and for all." Richard's brow furrowed with concern. "Samantha, you know how ruthless they can be. They'll come after you, try to intimidate you. Are you sure you're ready for this?" Samantha's gaze hardened. "I'm not afraid of them, Richard. This is our home, our community, and I won't let them turn it into their own personal fiefdom." She placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Trust me, I know what I'm doing." At the HOA meeting, Samantha stood tall, her voice unwavering as she outlined the patrol's illegal surveillance tactics and the sheer audacity of their wellness checks. The room erupted in hushed murmurs, and she could feel the tension in the air. Across the room, Margaret, the head of the patrol, glared at Samantha, her lips pursed in a thin line. "These are baseless accusations," she declared, her tone dripping with disdain. "Our wellness checks are simply an effort to ensure the safety and well-being of our residents." Samantha refused to back down. "Safety? You call spying on people's private lives and harassing them in their own homes safety?" She shook her head, her voice rising. "This is a clear violation of our rights, and I won't stand for it any longer." The meeting descended into chaos, with residents shouting and Margaret's supporters trying to shout Samantha down. But she refused to be silenced, her determination only growing stronger. As the meeting came to a close, Margaret approached Samantha, her eyes narrowed. "You've made a powerful enemy today, Samantha. This isn't over." Samantha met her gaze unflinchingly. "I'm not afraid of you, Margaret. You and your wellness patrol have crossed a line, and I'm going to make sure the entire community knows what you've been doing." With that, Samantha turned and walked away, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew this was only the beginning of a battle that would test her resolve and the very fabric of her community. Samantha spent the next few days gathering evidence, security camera footage, witness statements, and copies of the patrol's own incident reports. She was determined to build an airtight case against the HOA's wellness squad, and she knew that the more she dug, the more alarming the truth would become. At the next HOA meeting, Samantha stood before the crowd, her eyes blazing with fury. "I have irrefutable proof that the Wellness Patrol has been illegally surveilling our neighbors, violating their privacy, and in some cases, even physically intimidating them." She began to lay out the damning evidence, one piece after another. The residents listened, their expressions shifting from shock to outrage. Even some of Margaret's staunchest supporters seemed unsettled by the revelations. Margaret, however, remained unfazed. "These are clearly fabricated lies designed to undermine the important work we're doing to keep our community safe. I won't stand for this kind of slander." Samantha's eyes narrowed. "Safe? You call harassing the elderly, interrogating children, and threatening anyone who dares to question your authority safe?" She shook her head in disgust. "No, Margaret. This is abuse of power, plain and simple." The room erupted into shouts and accusations, with residents demanding that the patrol be disbanded and their actions investigated. Margaret's face flushed with anger, and she slammed her fist on the table. "This meeting is over," she declared, her voice trembling with rage. "Anyone who continues to spread these lies will face the full consequences of the law." As the residents filed out, Samantha caught Margaret's eye. She saw the fear and desperation there, and she knew that she was getting under the woman's skin. This was a battle she was determined to win, no matter the cost. That night, Samantha pored over her notes, her mind racing with possibilities. She knew that she had to take this fight to the next level. But she also knew that Margaret and the HOA would stop at nothing to silence her. As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Richard reached over and squeezed her hand. "You're doing the right thing, Samantha. I'm with you, no matter what." Samantha smiled, feeling a renewed sense of determination. With her husband by her side, she knew that she could take on the might of the HOA and win. The next day, Samantha called a press conference, determined to bring the community's attention to the HOA's abuses. As reporters gathered, she laid out the evidence, her voice strong and unwavering. "This is not just about our privacy and our rights," she declared. "It's about the very fabric of our community. We cannot allow a small, power-hungry faction to dictate how we live our lives." The media coverage was swift and scathing, with headlines blaring the HOA's misdeeds across the local news. Residents began to rally behind Samantha, their anger and outrage fueling a growing movement. Margaret, however, was not about to back down. She called an emergency HOA meeting, her eyes burning with fury. "This is an attack on our community, plain and simple," she spat, her voice laced with venom. "We cannot allow one disgruntled resident to tear us apart. We must stand united, and we must take action to protect our way of life." The HOA board members, some of whom had been wavering in their support of the Wellness Patrol, now found themselves divided. Some saw the writing on the wall and began to distance themselves, while others remained loyal to Margaret's cause. Samantha, sensing an opportunity, reached out to the more moderate members of the board, appealing to their sense of fairness and community. She knew that if she could sway even a few of them, it could be the key to dismantling the Wellness Patrol once and for all. As the tension mounted, Samantha received a disturbing phone call. It was one of her neighbors, her voice shaking with fear. "Samantha, they're targeting us. My house was vandalized last night, and I found a note warning me to stop stirring up trouble." Samantha's blood ran cold. She knew that Margaret and her supporters were growing desperate, and they were willing to resort to intimidation and violence to silence her. But she refused to be cowed. "Don't worry," she said, her voice steady. "We're going to fight this together. I won't let them get away with this." With renewed determination, Samantha prepared for the showdown that was to come, knowing that the stakes had just been raised. The next HOA meeting was a tense and volatile affair. Samantha arrived with a contingent of supportive residents, their faces set with determination. Margaret and her loyalists, on the other hand, seemed to have brought an army of their own. As the meeting began, Samantha stepped forward, her voice ringing out across the room. "We're here today to demand the immediate disbandment of the Wellness Patrol and a full investigation into their illegal activities." Margaret scoffed, her arms crossed over her chest. "This is nothing more than a witch hunt, Samantha. These are good, upstanding members of our community, and we won't let you destroy their reputations with your lies." The room erupted into a cacophony of shouts and accusations, with both sides hurling insults and demands at each other. Samantha remained steadfast, her eyes never leaving Margaret's. "If you have nothing to hide, then why are you so desperate to protect them?" she challenged. "Why are you willing to resort to intimidation and vandalism to silence us?" Margaret's face flushed with anger, and she slammed her fist on the table. "I will not stand here and be accused of such heinous acts. If you have evidence, then you should take it to the authorities." Samantha nodded, a grim smile spreading across her face. "Oh, we will. But first, we're going to let the entire community know exactly what's been going on under your watch." With that, Samantha and her supporters began to present their evidence, meticulously laying out the parade of abuses and violations committed by the Wellness Patrol. The room fell silent, and even some of Margaret's staunchest supporters seemed to waver. As the meeting drew to a close, Margaret stood, her eyes burning with fury. "This isn't over, Samantha. You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over. Samantha met her gaze, unflinching. "Bring it on, Margaret. We're ready for you." As the residents filed out, Samantha felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had taken the first step, but she knew that the battle was far from over. Margaret and her supporters would not go down without a fight, and Samantha was prepared for the long haul. In the days that followed, Samantha and her supporters continued to put pressure on the HOA. They organized community meetings, rallied neighbors, and even reached out to local government officials, determined to expose the Wellness Patrol's abuses and have them disbanded once and for all. Margaret, however, was not about to back down. She doubled down on her efforts, launching a smear campaign against Samantha and her allies. She accused them of being disruptive troublemakers, of undermining the community's values, and of putting everyone's safety at risk. The battle lines were drawn, and the community found itself deeply divided. Some residents, swayed by Margaret's rhetoric, began to turn against Samantha, while others remained steadfast in their support. Tensions reached a boiling point when one of Samantha's supporters, a young mother named Emily, reported that her car had been vandalized. Angry and shaken, she confronted Margaret at the next HOA meeting. "You and your goons are behind this, aren't you?" she cried, her voice trembling with rage. "I won't let you intimidate us anymore." Margaret's eyes narrowed, and she leaned forward, her voice dripping with condescension. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Emily. Perhaps you should consider the company you keep." The room erupted into chaos, with both sides shouting and accusing each other. Samantha tried to intervene, but the situation quickly spiraled out of control. In the end, the police were called, and several residents were escorted out of the meeting, their faces flushed with anger and frustration. As Samantha watched the scene unfold, she felt a pang of despair. This was not the community she had known and loved. The Wellness Patrol's tactics had torn her neighborhood apart, and she knew that she had to find a way to bring everyone back together. That night, as she sat at her kitchen table, Richard reached across and squeezed her hand. "You're doing the right thing, Samantha. Don't give up." Samantha nodded, her resolve renewed. She would not back down, not when the stakes were so high. This was a fight for the very soul of her community, and she was determined to win. Undeterred by the escalating tensions, Samantha continued her crusade against the Wellness Patrol. She reached out to local media outlets, determined to keep the spotlight on the HOA's abuses and rally the community to her cause. Her efforts paid off when a local news station agreed to do a feature on the controversy. The segment, which aired during prime time, painted a damning portrait of the Wellness Patrol's tactics, highlighting the personal stories of residents who had been targeted and harassed. The public response was immediate and overwhelming. Residents from across the community flocked to Samantha's side, outraged by the revelations and determined to put an end to the Wellness Patrol's reign of terror. Margaret, realizing that she was losing the PR battle, tried to stage a counteroffensive. She called an emergency HOA meeting, where she attempted to paint Samantha and her supporters as radical agitators who were tearing the community apart. "These people are not interested in the well-being of our residents," she declared, her voice dripping with disdain. "They are hell-bent on destroying everything we've worked so hard to build." But Samantha was ready. She had anticipated Margaret's move and had prepared a rebuttal that would leave the HOA's defenders speechless. "If you're so concerned about the well-being of our residents," she retorted, "then why have you allowed the Wellness Patrol to harass the elderly, interrogate children, and violate the privacy of our neighbors?" The room erupted into applause, and even some of Margaret's most loyal supporters seemed to waver in their commitment. Sensing the tide turning against her, Margaret tried a different tactic. "If you're so confident in your claims, Samantha, then why don't you take this to court? Let the legal system decide who's in the right." Samantha smiled, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Oh, we will. And we'll make sure the entire world knows just how far you and your cronies are willing to go to protect your power." As the meeting adjourned, Samantha felt a surge of adrenaline. They were close, so close to finally putting an end to the Wellness Patrol's reign of terror. But she knew that Margaret would not go down without a fight. The stage was set for the final showdown, and Samantha was determined to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. The legal battle that followed was a grueling one, with both sides pulling out all the stops to sway the courts in their favor. Samantha and her team of lawyers presented a mountain of evidence, meticulously documenting the Wellness Patrol's illegal activities and the harm they had caused to the community. Margaret, on the other hand, marshaled an army of high-powered attorneys who tried to poke holes in Samantha's case and paint her as an overzealous troublemaker. They argued that the Wellness Patrol's actions were well within the HOA's purview and that their methods, while perhaps unorthodox, were ultimately in the best interests of the community. The courtroom drama was intense, with both sides trading barbs and accusations. At times, it felt as if the very fabric of the community was on trial, with each side fighting to preserve their vision of what it meant to be a good neighbor. As the proceedings dragged on, the tension in the community reached a fever pitch. Residents took sides, with some rallying behind Samantha and others standing firm with Margaret and the HOA. The turning point came when one of the Wellness Patrol's former members, a young woman named Jessica, came forward to testify. Visibly shaken, she described the intense pressure she had faced to be a part of the squad, the way they had been trained to intimidate and harass residents, and the fear she had felt when she finally decided to speak out. Her testimony, coupled with the overwhelming evidence presented by Samantha's team, proved to be the decisive blow. The judge, clearly moved by the gravity of the situation, ruled that the Wellness Patrol's actions were a clear violation of the residents' civil liberties and ordered the HOA to disband the squad immediately. As the courtroom erupted in cheers and applause, Samantha caught Margaret's eye. The once powerful woman seemed deflated, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Samantha knew that this was only the beginning, that the battle for the soul of their community was far from over. But for now, she savored the sweet taste of victory. In the aftermath of the court ruling, the community of Rosewood Hills found itself at a crossroads. The Wellness Patrol had been dismantled, but the damage they had done would not be easily repaired. Samantha, still reeling from the intensity of the legal battle, knew that the real work was just beginning. She convened a series of town hall meetings, inviting all residents to come together and discuss how they could heal the divisions that had been torn wide open. To her surprise, even some of Margaret's former supporters attended, their faces etched with a newfound humility. They listened as Samantha and her allies shared their stories, the pain and fear they had experienced at the hands of the Wellness Patrol. Slowly but surely, a sense of unity began to emerge. Residents who had once been at each other's throats now found common ground, united in a desire to rebuild a community built on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. Margaret, for her part, retreated from the spotlight, realizing that her dream of a wellness-focused neighborhood had been shattered beyond repair. Samantha, though she harbored no ill will toward her former adversary, knew that true reconciliation would take time and effort. As the weeks turned into months, Rosewood Hills began to heal. Neighbors who had once been strangers now found themselves working side by side, organizing block parties, volunteering at the local food bank, and rediscovering the joys of community. Samantha, watching the transformation unfold, felt a sense of pride and relief. The battle had been hard fought, but in the end, the true spirit of Rosewood Hills had prevailed. The Wellness Patrol's reign of terror was over, and the community was poised to emerge stronger and more resilient than ever before. As she walked through the streets, greeting familiar faces and feeling the warmth of her neighbors' smiles, Samantha couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them to this point. It had been a long and arduous battle, but in the end, the power of the people had triumphed over the forces of control and oppression. And that, Samantha knew, was a victory worth celebrating.